It's not easy being Murchad MacDonagh. 3 years ago, his dad left to get milk and cigarettes and never came back. Murchad didn't get any unique content for the Legends of CK3 update, and now Paradox have added an option to replace him with his cousin Thurlock, because of something called historical accuracy, whatever that is. To make matters worse, tales of Murchad's apparent misdeeds are being spread from Ireland to Cathay. Well, fine. If everyone wants rid of him, Murchad's going to take to the open road, find his dad, and use his diplomatic skills to clear his name in the Far East. Before we can hit the road, we first have to decide on our camp purpose, and we're going to become explorers. This is going to give us faster travel speed, and we have a lot of travelling to do. It's also going to give us more diplomacy contracts, which is very fitting, as Murchad has a very high diplomacy and a very long journey to go as he seeks to undo the damage done by these malicious rumours. But we're also going to have to pick a more fitting name for Murchad's travelling band, and I've seen a lot of people take the second part of his name, Ka or Cud, which means battle. Murchad means effectively sea warrior, and I've seen people refer to him as the Ka Meister, the Ka of Ireland. So what we're going to call ourselves, as Murchad seeks to become the greatest diplomat known to man, the Diplo-Ka Supremacy. And he has a long way to go if he wants to become the greatest Diplo-Ka of all time, the greatest diplomatic warrior known to man. First, we have to head for Rome to find our dad, and then head to Cathay to become an influential diplomat, maybe even a government minister, and undo all of these malicious rumours. It's going to be a long journey, and it starts with a step in the wrong direction as we head down to Desmond to hobnob with Murchad. As we're hanging around in a swamp in Desmond trying to impress Murchad, our aunt, Bevan, who is usually Murchad's spy master, shows up. She wants to join us as our caravan master. At that age and in that health, I'd say there's very little chance of you even seeing Rome, so we're instead going to buy some detailed maps from her, which will increase our travel speed and our provisions capacity. And very graciously, Murchad covers the majority of the cost of that map. So that puts the Diplo-Ka Supremacy in a pretty good position to begin the journey off the island of Ireland. We're going to head across to Scotland, down to England, and then across to the continent to begin the journey to Rome, to find our dad and give out to him. What kind of father would do that to their son? Just abandon them to hostile forces determined to overthrow them. Anyway, Brian, you're in charge now. If your cousin Thurlock shows up, I don't know, just tell him we're not home. And with no good contracts in Ulster, we have crossed across into Scotland and are now heading down to the Isle of Man, where, we are assured, the crack was 90. Do you know what? There is so much crack on the Isle of Man that the King of Scotland has showed up to capture the place, so we had better execute the scheme and skedaddle. On the way to the Scottish capital to tell them of the terrible time that we had on the Isle of Man and how right they are to be conquering it, we meet Kieran Mac Aigasa. Now we could take on his soldiers, his 600 men. It's going to cost us 50 quid. For 20 quid, we can get Kieran himself to join us as a bodyguard. Murchad's trip to the Scottish capital hasn't been great so far. He's managed to accidentally increase the cost of supplies and has not managed to find any new diplomatic contracts, but what he has found is an Amazonian woman. He's going to go up to her and impress her by telling her that he is the leader of the Diplo-Ka Supremacy and offer to buy her a mug of spiced wine. Kintigern's stats aren't exactly the best, but it can get lonely on the road, so Murchad is going to begin a scheme to romance her with a love poem. While the Diplo-Ka Supremacy is obviously focusing on diplomacy, Murchad's martial skills are quite high as well. We would like to visit as much of Hadrian's Wall as possible to pick up some lifestyle experience, but something's going on. Lots of England seems to be up in anarchy. No idea what could possibly be going on in late 1060s England. Oh, that's what's going on. Indeed, as we head south for Offa's Dyke, we meet some Anglo-Saxon soldiers who tell us of how they defeated the Norwegians. Yeah, well, that just made things easier for the Normans. We're going to gain some martial lifestyle experience, or some martial or prowess, unless we insult them. In Shrewsbury, we were able to pick up a quick diplomacy contract for a neighbouring countess. Just as the members of our camp nickname Murica's future GF as Kyntigern the Stout. Guys, come on, she's not stout, she's just big-boned. With the upheaval that is currently being seen throughout England, we can get through the rest of Offa's Dyke fairly easily, but it would be a bit too much of a risk to try and make it either for the capital or for Canterbury, so we're going to head down past Salisbury to take a look at Stonehenge, and then we're going to make our way, hopefully, across the English Channel without too much hassle. And it looks like it's a good time to be leaving Ireland. Insularism has abandoned polygamy. What the hell is insularism without polygamy? Well, we have a romance opportunity against Stout Kyntigern, who, at bow and arrow point, will now become Murica's soulmate on the long journey east. All this journeying has given Murica his first diplomacy lifestyle perk. He has already completed the family hierarch, so we have the befriend scheme, and we have friendly consul, which will give random skill points for friends, so we're going to have to start making some friends. We're going to finish off the diplomat tree. We'll go for defensive negotiations. We're basically just making our way down to the diplomat perk for that, plus 3 diplomacy. No contracts, but some interesting, though not very useful, and very expensive items to buy at Pool. I'm going to spend that money instead on a barber's tent, which will start bringing in a small amount of cash monthly, but it's mostly going to be for the plague danger and disease resistance as we cross the channel and head for Paris. Money is tight at the moment, but how could Murica possibly pass up an opportunity to star in a play for some provisions in Clermont? And it is a tremendous success. Somebody's given Murica a sword, somebody else has given him a ton of drink, and he's made up a story about a ferocious boar. Back in Paris, we've managed to pick up some martial lifestyle from listening to some stories. We've gotten the barber's tent completed, and we're going to begin heading eastwards. There's not much going on in the region. We're going to begin heading eastwards to Aachen, which is one of only a handful of places in Europe where we can get diplomacy lifestyle experience from visiting. It's engulfed in war at the moment, so we're not going to be hanging around for too long. It's fighting a liberty war. I spoke too soon. The capital of the Holy Roman Empire will also give us diplomacy lifestyle experience, as it is a diplomatic court, and it's another stop on our way to Rome. And with supplies running low, thankfully we have found a diplomatic contract from the capital of the HRE. There's a lot of military contracts around, so we might be hiring ourselves out as muscle, but we're going to hobnob with Count Heinrich first of all. Murica hobnobs, Murica flexes, Murica gets some money and gets some provisions, and we've also just gotten access to the embassy's diplomacy perk, which means that we can now make a request of Kaiser Heinrich IV. We can make requests of the rulers whose territories we're based in using the embassies, and we're going to request some provisions. We're just about in a position to get him to accept. I was prepping to make him our friend if necessary. And those supplies will prepare the Diploca supremacy for a very dangerous crossing of the Alps. If they make it to the other side, they're going to head for Ravenna, from where Murica will undertake a pilgrimage to Rome to find his dad. Halfway across the Alps, one of our party members was bitten by a snake, so obviously Murica is a bit stressed. And as he strolls through the gardens of Ravenna, he finds an opportunity to convert to Catholicism, or to take advantage of the many hidden nooks and crevices. With every crevice investigated, Mordecai sets off on his pilgrimage to Rome, and when he returns with his dad, he will hopefully have swayed the Prince Bishop of Ravenna enough that we'll be able to request either supplies or money. We've almost reached our destination, but Mordecai has become ill from listening to an insular sermon delivered in the pouring rain. Now, our camp at the moment is made up entirely of family members, except for Ciarán Mac Aigasa. We have, however, found on our journeys Arnulfo, the heathen. So he's not great, but he's the highest learning person in the camp at the moment. A monk who visited, and we convinced him to join, so I'm going to appoint him as our new physician. Sorry, Maliki. So hopefully he will be able to keep us alive for our stay in Rome. We have walked the holy path and become a pilgrim. And indeed, Arnulfo has cured Mordecai of his illness in perfect time to meet with Pope Silvestro. Now, Pope Silvestro isn't the Pope. Pope Silvestro is the Pope's Pope. But still, we're going to ask him. We've been looking around. Pope Silvestro, have you seen our dad? You have? Where is he? Well, that's not great news, and indeed the bad news continues to pile on Mordecai as he returns to Ravenna after learning of the death of his father. First, he has failed to sway the Prince Bishop of Ravenna, so he's not going to get any goodies from him. And he has also learned that his lover, Caintigern, who he brought with him from Scotland, as well as getting the pilgrim trait, has just gotten the fornicator trait. Because little Donnacón has appeared out of somewhere. Truly, Italy has utterly broken Mordecai's heart. I would not want to be on that ship as the Diploca Supremacy set sail from Ravenna for the Byzantine Empire to do some sightseeing before reaching Constantinople. And I think we may have discovered who Donnacón's father is. Caintigern and Maliki, our former physician, wish to be married. We will permit the union. We haven't had the best of welcomes in Constantinople. There are no diplomacy contracts around. The Basilius is engaged in 2 major wars and won't grant any of our requests, and we don't even have the money to buy the supplies to move on from here. So we're going to have to write back to the Pope and see will he give us a few bob for petrol. Yeah, sure. Spreading the faith, that's what we're going to use this money for. Totally not using it to run away from the memory of our dead dad and our broken relationship. With our bellies full of food and our pockets full of holy money, there isn't much more left for us in Constantinople. We could push across land and head for the Seljuk Empire, but what I think we're going to do instead is travel down the coast, visit Halicarnassus, and cross across to Jerusalem, and from there we're going to cross to the Persian Gulf and set sail for India. Arriving in Jerusalem, Mordecai is able to put his skills at the disposal of some local rulers to improve their reputation and get some money together to fill our now, again, depleted coffers. Mordecai and the Diploca Supremacy have come a long way from the River Shannon. They've reached the Jordan, where Christ himself was baptized. And in cleansing themselves in the water, Mordecai will become more holy, but a little less healthy. Mordecai gained some contracts and a new head porter at Jerusalem, but not much else other than that. He's now going to begin the process of crossing the desert to the Persian Gulf. The only problem is that the shortest path is in utter anarchy, so he is going to head north for Baghdad. Oh, Maliki, you goddamn idiot. Mordecai's nephew, knight, and friend, so-called friend, who stole his lover, Caintigern, from him, is after dropping a barrel of water in the desert, and we don't have much of a chance of finding more provisions. And indeed we don't, and we make it to Baghdad on a hungry belly. Thankfully, however, we are able to go to the ruler of Abaddon and, by spending some prestige, get some provisions to replace the ones that Maliki lost. Murchad has also convinced one of the local traders to give him resources for free, and as he's celebrating his minor victory, he spots a potential match at the local tavern. She mightn't be a big woman, she mightn't be robust, he mightn't even be able to pronounce her name. But Murchad thinks it's about time he gets over his broken heart. Not wishing to have another soulmate turn against him, this time he's going to begin a simple seduce scheme. On his way to carry out a diplomacy contract to get some money to finance that seduce scheme, Murchad comes across a tomb raider. He could demand some money and lose piety instead. He will prove himself to be the most pious individual by imprisoning Tannen, who we can now recruit to court as an insularist. And by court, I mean our crappy little camp. And it is here, far from Ireland, that Murchad fails his first diplomatic quest, even after we put Tannen on the job. I think it's fair to say things have not gone tremendously well for the Diplo-Ka supremacy since it left Rome, and while we could have journeyed from Constantinople to China, by instead sailing to India, Murchad can reduce the journey to his final destination, and he can check out some of the local wonders. And some within the camp are very comfortable in their new surroundings. Crahur, the stranger, Murchad's nephew, we found a wife for him. We've been on the road for almost 10 years, and ignoring Caintigern's indiscretion, this is the first child born to the Diplo-Ka supremacy. Crahur works quickly, fair play to him. We're going to name the child Bevan after our aunt. May you grow to be strong and wise. And I think it's fair to say that India, so far, has been kinder to the Diplo-Ka supremacy than any other region they have visited since the Holy Roman Empire. The local Maharaja will grant the Diplo-Ka supremacy 51 gold. With that and the other money that we've put together in the region from contracts, we can begin the first expansion of our pavilion. As the Diplo-Ka supremacy continues to push on through India, Murchad discovers the devastating news that another of his lovers has cheated on him. What are the chances? How could this have possibly happened? And then Murchad begins to think about how this could have possibly happened. And he thinks back to Caintigern, and thinks of her young son Dunacon, and his Ivrian red hair. Could Dunacon be Murchad's son? The resemblance is there, and one way or another, it's most likely that he's an Ivrian. And so, Murchad, thinking to the future, will take young Dunacon under his wing and train him as a diplomat. Murchad reaches the Kingdom of Bengal. It gives him a learning lifestyle perk. However, the years are truly beginning to show on his face. We've already taken one perk which helps with learning languages, and we're going to take a second. Because soon Murchad will be within range of the Kingdom of Dali, which will give him the opportunity to learn the Chinese language. And that's going to be absolutely essential for Murchad to become the ultimate Diplo-Ka, as will the title of diplomat, which he has finally earned 11 years into his journey. Hanging around Bengal, we've gotten a number of diplomacy contracts together, so we're trying to get some money before we make our final push into China, and we have been visited by Nangazir, who wishes to join our camp and become our friend. I think we only have 3 friends at this stage. They're all giving us extra stats. We have dumped yet another lover, and dumped her on somebody in the camp. In terms of contracts, India has been very good to us. We have, however, pushed on to what will be our last stop before entering the greater Chinese world, and we've been caught in a monsoon in the jungles. We're not going to pray to Saint Ruan, he's not going to do anything for us. I have a feeling a lot of people are going to get hypothermia. Now, even though we're on the border, we're still too far away from the capital of Delhi to learn the language of its ruler. We can, however, learn the language of one of their vassals. And that is what we will begin to do. It's going to be tough. And not alone is he a vassal of the King of Delhi, he is the heir to the throne. So this is a much better character to build up a long-term relationship with. Another child is born to the Diploca supremacy, the first male, definitely, of the Ivrian name, Rothach, who has also inherited the Hail trait, a slightly watered-down version of his mother's robust trait. Salma the Heathen was married off to Kinnetig, our nephew. May you grow to be strong and wise, and a potential future leader of the Diploca supremacy. Murchad has held off from entering the Kingdom of Delhi until he could master the Chinese language, and that he has just done. And to celebrate, and to prepare the way for his entry, he will write a letter to Prince Duwan. 14 years after he left Ireland, Murchad now stands at the gates of Cathay, which currently sees a stable era of advancement. The 16-year-old Huangdi Zhaoyu rules as the son of heaven, and all seems fairly stable at the moment, though there is potential for an era of tension. Before pushing on into the heart of China, Murchad is first going to make some influential friends. He has befriended Prince Duwan, the heir to the Kingdom of Delhi, and we will get him to perform the first ever Chinese rendition of Juno and the Peacock to boost his reputation. If Murchad is to make a truly great impression in China, he is going to need to study and study hard. So he's attending the local university in the Kingdom of Delhi. The only problem is the Diploca supremacy is fairly strapped for cash at the moment, so all he has to his name is a few scraps of paper to write on. He can't afford books. The lack of resources limits what Murchad can achieve, but it does start him off on the lowest rung of his Confucian education. The Kingdom of Delhi has provided the Diploca supremacy with all that it can. Diplomatic contracts have dried up in the region, so the camp is going to move on, but instead of heading north towards the capital of the Song Empire, they're instead going to head eastwards to hit a few more universities. And unless Murchad wants to go down a life of crime and become a confidence trickster, contracts are few and far between in the Hunan province that he's moved into as well. He's had to take on some hired muscle roles. And so we haven't fully had time to prepare for them, but an invitation has come in from the Emperor for Murchad to attend the capital examinations, and how could he possibly say no? It has been a long journey from the Diploca base camp far to the south, but Murchad has finally reached the capital and is prepared to do his best, even though things don't look great. But even if he doesn't perform well on the examination, he is in a position to make some new influential friends. The exam has begun. Murchad has only one advantage, so things are going to be tough for him, and a question is put to him that a deserving official is denied reinstatement, while an undeserving official is granted reinstatement. How should the situation be judged? It is time to introduce China to the Brehon laws. And unfortunately, they weren't massively impressed with the Brehon laws, nor the poem that Murchad wrote about Pangerbone. It was all right. He has failed in his bid, his first bid, to pass the capital exams. Back at the camp, Murchad is still complaining about the exam. He was banking on Seamus Heaney to come up, and the fact that he didn't totally screwed him, when a wandering visitor appears, a wise man known as the Clueless. We will try and hire him. Murchad finished in a respectable 48th. He hasn't managed to gain the favour of the Emperor, however, and that's what he needs to prove himself as the greatest Diploca of all time. But as we head back to base camp, we discover that our second-in-command, Sheen, who we picked up in Burma, has murdered the wife of our nephew, Krahur, the mother of Bevan. We will summon the guards. And somebody clearly sees an opportunity to get ahead in life. This stupid young one wants to become our second-in-command. Hit the road, you useless doxy. He might be dying, but for now, Ultan the Humorless will take on the position of our second-in-command. As for the murderer, he claims to be a wise man, but he didn't even reach level 1. Maybe if he did, he wouldn't have gone murdering people. Or he would have done a better job at hiding it. Murchad is back in the Hunan province, and there are still no diplomatic contracts for him to undertake. He is absolutely exhausted. He's learned some Hini, he's executed some camp followers, and he has now demanded that the local ruler hold a feast in his honour to celebrate his exam results, even though he already wants to go home. The guest list isn't phenomenal, but it does present Murchad with an opportunity to be seen with the great and the good of local politics. Murchad has been handing out bottles of poachine, which the poor people cannot handle. It does, however, give him an opportunity to gain 1 prestige per month for the next 5 years, and we have been generating negative prestige since we left Ireland. So not the greatest feast of all time, but it has been advantageous for Murchad. That feast was to prepare Murchad for his next university visit, but I forgot that he can't undertake another one for quite a lengthy period of time, and I think it's unlikely that Murchad will ever see the inside of a university again. So Murchad pushes on eastwards, and finally some diplomatic contracts begin to appear. And it's on the island of Taiwan, undertaking one of those diplomacy contracts, that our half-brother and heir, Krahur the Brave, dies of old age at 65. Another one bites the dust. Ultan the Humorless has passed away. We appointed him as our second when Scene murdered a member of our camp. We will now appoint a different Scene, who I think we also recruited in Burma. 20 years after leaving Ireland, the Diploca supremacy has made its way around the south, the east, and now up to the north of China, basically skirting around the capital, desperately looking for either learning contracts or diplomacy contracts. And finally, we find a few. The entire east of China was intrigue and criminal contracts. We also have our first Tier 2 diplomatic contract since leaving Ireland, to regale the court of a governor and to correct the malicious rumours that have been told about Murchad and his father. As we attend the governor's court, however, we receive the terrible news that Arnulfo, the heathen, who I think we picked up just outside Rome, our long-term physician, has passed away of old age. We do, however, have this clueless lad who can step up and take his place. It's been a long and lonely journey for Murchad from Ireland to Cathay, full of random romances and children with questionable parentage. But if he is truly to make a mark and make himself presentable in China, he's going to need to settle down. And at a local fair, he meets a young woman who he will recruit to court and propose marriage to. And then romance, instead of romancing first of all and ending up with questionable children. And you see, it's already working. Murchad is already a much more respectable figure in Chinese society now that he has a Chinese wife. The Emperor's forward scout, his caravan master, wishes to join Murchad's camp. And he has some solid stewardship figures. No doubt one of the reasons for this is because of a minor civil war that has broken out. It looks as though the Emperor is going to win fairly easily, but perhaps his caravan master didn't want to make the lengthy journey south, so he gets to stay close to the capital where we are. You know how the saying goes, if at first you don't succeed, threaten a woman with a bow and arrow and third time's a charm. Speaking of the results of questionable romances, Donachon, the child of Murchad's former lover, Caintigern, has come of age after Murchad educating him, converting him to Insular and Irish, and training him as a fairly solid diplomat. But at least Donachon got to celebrate his 16th birthday at a fancy court where we have regaled the governor with tales of Ireland, correcting the malicious rumours that have been spread from Ireland to Cathay. And speaking again of children with questionable parentage, Yildiz, the daughter of Murchad's former lover, has become a poet. Which is quite fitting, considering that Murchad is somewhat of a scholar himself. So yeah, it is pretty clear at this stage that Donachon and Yildiz are Murchad's children. Here's one very easy way of proving that. So going forward, we're going to have to try and organise something for them. For now, Donachon is our knight and friend, and as his education has finished, Murchad has begun educating his daughter Yildiz. Murchad has relocated his camp to the west of the capital, and as he arrives, his new wife has given birth to a daughter, the first of his children that he can actually confirm is his. We will name the child Ben Shianach. To the southwest, the minor uprising is about to come to an end. It's taken a lot longer than I expected, considering the size of the Emperor's forces. And as the troops will soon be returning home, Murchad will be there to greet them. Over the last number of years, Murchad and the Diplocat supremacy have often been short of cash. Begging off of the Pope, using the barber's tent in their camp, and completing contracts have been the only way that they've been able to get money together. Recently, however, Murchad gained a stewardship trait that gave him 20 gold for every unique location that he visited. And he's been able to use that money to listen to stories throughout China and reach the highest level in the Wit Hastelauder path. While waiting for the war to end in the southeast, Murchad has completed a work of learning for a nearby prefect who's absolutely delighted with all the ogham that we put in the margins. And as that war comes to an end, Murchad will begin to test the waters of just how much diplomatic reach he has by asking the Emperor for hunting rights. A second work of learning, as the Emperor returns to the capital, should give Murchad the prestige that is needed to request that the Emperor hold a grand tournament. A tournament which will give Murchad the opportunity to show off all the skills that he learned in the taverns since he arrived in China. Over 200 entrants have confirmed their attendance at the tournament so far, the great and good of the Chinese court and Donachon. And as Murchad practices his Magic the Gathering skills for the big tournament, his wife gives him another son with very red hair, just like Donachon's. Donachad, may you grow to be strong and wise. Donachad, I said strong and wise, not sickly and wise. And so the board game contest begins. Donachon and two other of our knights have entered the contest as well. We managed to get 3 preparations done before the tournament started, so we're fairly far on our way to victory at the moment. We're gonna place a bet. We could bet on Donachon. We'll bet on ourselves. And we're given an opportunity to cheat, which Murchad will not take. He is confident of his victory. And it was a good decision because the Emperor has spotted one of his vassals attempting to sabotage, I think possibly, Donachon. Shameless. Our first opponent has lost a bit more than his temper. The Emperor's eunuch attendant has flipped over the table. Pick them up. I need to make my last move. Tales of Murchad's misdeeds are known from Ireland to Cathay, but the level of cheating and sabotage that we've witnessed in this tournament so far is unbelievable. Our next opponent is clearly cheating, and we've managed to convince the judges. And Murchad hits his opponent with a counter spell to completely upend his strategy and claim victory, which has now set up an absolutely enthralling final between Murchad, the leader of the Diplo-Ka supremacy, and Zhang, his bodyguard. Already, Murchad is regretting his decision not to force Zhang to concede because he is cheating. We're going to have to take a slight decrease to our victory chances to then hit him with a learning and diplomacy challenge. Cheats and saboteurs everywhere, but Murchad has seen them all off to claim victory. Now, tales of his great deeds will be told from Cathay to Ireland. Murchad's not in a position to rest on his laurels just yet, however. Next is the horse race, and as his rider, he is going to choose his non-cheating bodyguard, Kieran. And truly, this is a great advertisement for the Irish horse industry. Murchad's Fleet Sprint has won the tournament. In a bid to make it 3 for 3, Murchad has unleashed a lame limnach onto the recital contest, but he has another one, a rewording of one of the Seamus Heaney poems that he had to learn for the palace examination. The crowd hollers and cheers. It's time to hit them with a bit of Kavna. But as Murchad prepares to take a bow, no doubt guaranteed victory, the sirens begin to ring out as one of the Emperor's intendants has declared war. Could it have been the threat of an Irishman going 3 for 3 against China's greatest scholars at a tournament held by the Emperor that caused a civil war of this magnitude to break out? There is very little help that Murchad can give to the Emperor. He has not focused on military affairs until now. He's going to desperately try and get some units together, but it's going to take him a while before he can build up their numbers. As if it was destiny, as troops begin to descend upon the capital of the Son of Heaven, Murchad finds in nearby ruins a sword with which he will lead his new units. Murchad has taken the decision, due to his close ties to the current regime, to abandon the capital, surrounded as it is by the Emperor's enemies. But the Emperor, no doubt, needs new servants and is determined to show that this rebellion is nothing to be afraid of. He is holding new capital examinations, and Murchad cannot turn down the opportunity to attend. Murchad returns to the capital, however, a bit worse for wear, having eaten some mouldy food on the way. Another reason Murchad is coming back to the capital examinations is because his growing family means he really needs a job. Murchad goes into the exam this time round a bit better prepared, but still as sick as a dog. We've all been there, Murchad, in the exam hall, begging for the sweet release of death. It's not a great time to become infirm, though. And that has definitely impacted Murchad's chances of getting into the civil service. I think he finished just outside the top 10, and while he says that he will study hard for the next one, I don't think there'll be a next one. I think it was the stress of the exams and the tournament which caused Murchad to become infirm. He has at least recovered from his illness now that he's back on the road. He's put on some clothes just in time for his daughter, Yildiz, to come of age and become a skilled tactician. SpaghettiOs, giving both Donecan and Yildiz the lustful trait probably wasn't a great idea. We've moved our camp back near to the capital. I believe most of the Emperor's soldiers have headed south, and they're actually not doing too bad at the moment. The enemy numbers are depleting, the Emperor's numbers are increasing ever so slightly, and we will help them to grow a tiny bit more by offering to join his war. In his old age and infirmity, in his desperate desire to provide some future and stability for his lustful, incestuous children, Murchad feared that he had made a rash decision to back the Emperor, especially as he has moved all of his troops away from the capital, and the enemy forces are now massing quite close to it. So you can imagine his surprise when he received a letter from the Commandant of Dice, one of the enemy commanders, offering to make him a landed lord if he withdraws from the conflict. The journey of the Diploca supremacy is at an end. Almost 30 years after leaving Ireland, the ailing Murchad MacDonagh has been appointed as governor of Quinjeong. He doesn't seem to be very well dressed for the position, though. That's much better. Now, while it's entirely possible that Murchad won't enjoy power for very long because the Emperor's armies are at his doorstep, he is still being showered with more and more titles by his new liege. Our only hope is that the Emperor will take pity on Murchad and allow him to remain in office in the event of his victory. Then again, we're not technically at war with the Emperor, our liege is, but it's entirely possible that he might take these titles off of us if he occupies these areas. I've given some of them out to family members, including to Donnacón, who's set up a new title for himself. And I think we're about to witness on our borders a battle which will decide the course of this war. It's gone very badly wrong for someone. It looks like it is the Emperor's forces that are being driven away. The Emperor has been hit with another crippling defeat which has chipped away at the war score, while we're being told that we need to bring our family members to take part in a local examination. I think our niece Bevan is the only other member of our family that can speak Chinese at the moment, so that is probably something we'd want to sort out. We will head north to the examinations under the guidance of our forward scout and daughter, Yildiz, who has been married to Kieran MacAgasa, the winner of the horse race in the cancelled tournament. As we reach the examinations, our sovereign, I have no idea who this man is, issues a public declaration blaming the thousands of ills which beset the realm, including foreigners, those devils, they've the place destroyed. He blames them all on the Emperor. Our grandnephew and ward, Rothuk, has come of age, and it looks like Murchad has managed to teach him Chinese as well as Arabic. Twice Murchad has sat the capital exams, so it must be rather unusual for him to now show up to the local exams, and considering that he's not taking part in the war against the Emperor, do you think everyone's kind of weirded out by the way he's decided to dress? I mean, it can't be easy sitting in an exam hall dressed like that. Hey, I know that guy. He gave me money. And he will also give me a divorce, considering that my wife did not adhere to the one true insular faith. She was a good wife to Murchad and provided him with 3 children, but she was low-born, and now that he's become a governor, Murchad wants a wife more fitting of his station, such as the widowed daughter of the Maharaja of Champa. The wedding will be celebrated on the way home from the examinations which our family members attended, but one person who won't be joining in the celebrations is our half-brother Lorcan, who has passed away from old age at 66, again reminding the 68-year-old Murchad that he doesn't have a huge amount of time left. To double down on those fears, we've learned that our friend Wang Duan, the ruler of Dali, has passed away at 61 years of age from eating poisonous plants. Returning to his governorship with his new wife, Murchad receives an immediate summons from his nominal overlord, the Emperor, informing him of another round of capital examinations, even though his armies are suffering defeat after defeat. Murchad will, of course, attend. Murchad's greatest dream was to pass these exams and enter the service of the Emperor, but as a recently appointed governor, he cannot sit them again. Instead, he's going to serve as an invigilator, handing out blank paper and reminding students to turn off their mobile phones. One of the students, recognizing Murchad's superior intellect, asks him what he thinks a specific passage means. In the midst of a civil war, we will tell him, rightful order above all. The exam is about to begin. Murchad tails behind the examiner, sweat running down his back from carrying the scrolls back and forth. You don't think it has anything to do with the armor, no? The exams are over, and though Murchad is greatly disappointed that he couldn't take part, he has increased his civilian career path and his Confucian education. And as Murchad departs the capital to head back home, it's entirely possible that this is the last time he will look upon the current reigning son of heaven. A governor's work is never done. Murchad must now crush the bandits which are running rampant through his territory. And as a reward for doing so, he is promoted to the merit rank of Lower Upper, the 7th rank on the civilian career path. There's Murchad putting his diplomatic skills to good use as chief secretary on his liege's council, the commandant of Dice. He looks a bit overdressed for the meetings, but then again, he is the only governor on the council. It is possible, however, that there'll be a vacancy to fill quite soon, as Murchad is 70 years of age and dying. While he might be infirm and dying, he's still some bit firm. At 70 years of age, Murchad has become a new father, and I think it's only fitting that he would name the child after himself. Though he is old and weary, Murchad has been summoned to assist with the local examinations. And there he dies, not entirely peacefully, but assured that the tales of his misdeeds have been well and truly refuted from Ireland to Cathay. Now all we need is somebody to make the return journey and bring stories of Murchad's great achievements back to his homeland. His grandnephew, Rothuk, is young and has a promising career ahead of him, but he was born on the road, and the road calls to him again. Maybe he'll take up the task, sometime in future.